So we're going to move into the Q&A. So we have a number of questions coming in. I'm hoping that some of these are also within the Google Doc. So let's have a little look at these. So we've got questions for the panel. Where would you recommend looking for jobs apart from the NHS jobs and Indeed? And obviously, Shermeena, they won't be able to look on NHS jobs for you. Where would they go, do you think?
So I have actually written a comment in the chat. I've suggested to have a look at LinkedIn. There are many jobs advertised on a daily basis. NHS, locum agencies, private practice, charities, and also it's a good place if you do have a profile to connect with employers. So I have lots of students who've connected with me, and I get to see what they're doing, and then they also get to see what we're doing. So it's a good place to connect with other speech and language therapists and AHPs in the field.
Thank you. So what sort of references would you be looking for and are acceptable? Would part-time work references that are non-SLT be useful? Anyone want to answer that?
I know when I applied for my role, I gave a part-time employment reference, and I think employers do accept them, because I think when you're a student, it sometimes might be quite hard to find a job that's directly clinically relevant to your degree, but any part-time work or any volunteering shows that you've got those transferable skills such as teamwork and leadership, and they are also useful when working as a speech and language therapist.
Thank you. So somebody's asked about, when writing a CV, do you include the separate clinical placements completed like other work experiences and paid employment?
Yeah, so I've just added a comment on that, Kamini, and I think, yes, it is helpful to break that down. And usually when I see a good CV, they're structured by academic year so that you can see the journey that the student has had. And usually by the final year, you can see that the role and responsibility of the student is much bigger than perhaps in early placements where they are doing observation. So that's nice to see that growth and development.
Yeah. Okay, some other questions coming in that we might take on offline. So giving feedback on the mental wellbeing survey conducted over the summer. Yes, we have been looking at that. Just to let you know that what we're doing is working particularly with government, but also we've been having chats with Shermeena and Sarah on the call for those working in private practice about wellbeing. We're very aware that in the NHS in particular, that the profession and everybody else is really exhausted, and there's an issue of even having time to access wellbeing resources. So we are working with government to have a look at that at the moment. So it's on our list of things that are really urgent. We're very aware that some of that, the issues around wellbeing, are also linked to capacity within the system with the workforce, and many people being off sick themselves or self-isolating. So we've been escalating this, and we are working on this, and we will be doing more on this area, but we can come back to you on what we're doing. But thank you for raising it. We do see it as a really important issue. Someone's asked about working abroad, and again, we can come back to you specifically on that question after this event. And the research on MBA-ME representation on interview panels. I don't know if Janet is still on the call to answer that.
Yeah,
question.
hi, yeah. Hello, hi. Yeah, what was the question, Kamini?
It was, who was the name of the researcher about looking at BAME representation on interview panels? Was that your internal person, was it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. In fact, if you on Twitter, let's just use our it's a guy called Hasib Ahmed, so HASEEB AHMAD ED, and he's our head of equality, diversity and inclusion at Leicestershire Partnership Trust. And I know for sure if anybody wants to contact him directly about the work we're doing in that way, I can certainly, though, for Kaylee sending out information post-event, I can get the research references from him. But follow him on Twitter. He's a really interesting champion in all sorts of different ways, and he's really revolutionised the way our organisation is taking that work forward. So, but I will provide the information for Kaylee.
Thank you. And we are working to encourage to work with Suzanne Rastrick, who's the Chief Allied Health Professions Officer, to see how that good practice is being rolled out throughout the NHS in England, and
Kamini,
lobbying for the same to happen. Yeah.
Kamini, can I just add to that? The things that really interested me in what he presented was that that he presented the demography of our own population across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. He presented then the comparative data of our demographic, of our workforce, and just about how out of sync we are, and we were. And he also presented the proportion that you would expect in certain levels of, seniority. If you think of it in the hierarchy, the prevalence of people from a range of diverse communities being present in that leadership structure. And we were really, given how rich Leicester City is, particularly in terms of its diversity, we were really, it really was shocking. So the work has started to address some of that, and it's very evidence-based, which makes it very solid and safe for us to work with. So I'm glad that's of interest.
Thank you. And I was just saying that we're working with Suzanne Rastrick, who's the Chief Allied Health Professions Officer, to see how the whole of the NHS is responding, because we are not, the NHS isn't accountable to the Royal College of Speech and Language Therapists. It's accountable through NHSIE. It's all very, I'm sure when you get out there, you'll have a better understanding of all these systems, but it's really important that that good practice is spread across the system, because it's not something that we have a huge control over. But what we are going to be doing with the membership, so you're all aware, is we're working ourselves on a whole set of initiatives around anti-racism, and looking at diversity in the workforce is one of them, but supporting all of us to embrace and be supportive of different cultures. Okay, so that's just a little plug for other work we're doing around that. So going back to questions, we've got somebody saying, in relation to further research, is it standard to pursue this on your own terms, or is it common for employers to encourage this from within and as part of the organisation itself? So someone who's interested in looking at doing more research.
Yeah, so I've had several employees that have done further research while in post, either pursuing masters or further study. I'm very supportive of that, and in those cases have negotiated designated study time to complete that research. Ultimately, I think it benefits the organisation and benefits the profession, so it's something that I'm completely behind.
Anyone else want to come in?
Shermeena. Yeah, I mean, from an NHS perspective, absolutely. I mean, it again, it's part of that cycle of professional development, raised at appraisal, discussed together, and usually we would be very supportive of that research being clearly linked to one of our service priorities, so that we are benefiting from that learning directly into the organisation for the population that we work with. So, but we need to be so much better at providing research active opportunities for people, but it's improving, definitely.
Thank you. Someone has asked around whether NHS jobs require a cover letter and CV as well as the internal application form.
No, it's just because it's on the system. It won't be a cover letter. It will be you fill the form in. There isn't a place for a cover letter, not in the system, not in our system anyway. So, and so you can put that personal statement that we talked about earlier, making sure that if there is anything that you would put in a cover letter, perhaps making sure that your personal statement captures the essence of that to hit people with when they first read about you.
Okay. So there's a few questions about, one was about what would really put you off somebody at an interview. And there's another one around, how do you know the job is really right for you? Is there anything particular we should be looking for? So it's interesting. It's two sides of the coin. What would put you off, and then what would other people really be, how do they know it's the right employer and the right fit for them? Anyone want to go in with that first one about the first of those two, the two sides of that question? So what would put you off somebody? And
I've had the experience of having someone turn up who is just completely has not prepared for the interview. It's almost like it was just interview practice. I'll rock up to the interview, and you just know, I've been interviewing for 9 years now, and I know when they've not prepared, their heart's not really in the job, they just want to experience the questions. So that puts me off straight away, and you can quickly, very early on, figure out, because their answers are not really related to the questions. They're not specifically prepared for that job description. So I would say, try and avoid that. I know interview practice is great, but if you're going for the job, if you're going for the interview, put your whole heart in it.
And the other side of that question, which is about how do they know that you might be the right fit for them as an employer?
I think for me, values are really important. So shared values and a shared understanding. So someone who's taken the time to work out why my company does what it is, and seeing that they understand those values. And then also just a sense of, we are going to work together. We are going to be collegiate. This is something that we're going to be working together for quite a long period, I hope. So just establishing that rapport early on.
Okay, so someone's asked about whether it's possible to visit a setting before accepting a role, and whether that's actually possible in the current context.
Yeah, I mean, we would be very supportive of that, because the person would need to demonstrate the arrangements that all the staff are working to in the bases, in terms of COVID security. So, so long as we could do that, then there's no reason why that couldn't be possible.
Anyone else want to come in?
I did that when I was applying for jobs. I asked if I could have a look around, and I think it really works in your favour, because it shows that you're interested in sort of getting an idea of what it's like, what the team's like, and you're putting in that extra effort, and it really sets you apart, I think, from the other applicants when you want to have a look around beforehand and things like that.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I'm just looking at the questions that are coming in. So somebody's asked about whether, because I think Shermeena, you were talking about using LinkedIn. So someone's asked whether you'd recommend creating a LinkedIn account or a professional Twitter account. Are there other professional social media profiles that employers look at?
I don't think we secretly look at everyone's social media profiles. No, we don't. But what I meant about a LinkedIn profile is that it's a good way to connect with employers and disciplines in your field and see what they're doing, and they can also see what you're doing if you've connected. I know that Twitter is a great place for SLTs to raise topics, have discussions. I don't think it matters whether you have a social media account or not, but it's a great way to connect. So I think it's a great place to connect and to engage in conversation and discussions. And yes, I have had students that have been quite, that engage a lot on social media, and they've got in touch, and I happen to have seen a lot of their posts, so I sort of know who they are. But again, that's a passion of theirs, which is to be quite present on social media. So it's a good way, I would say, if you want to connect and engage with your fellow colleagues.
Can I just comment on that? Because I've been very pro using Twitter as a speech and language therapist, and I think it is such a fantastic platform. And this may be really, really common sense, obvious advice, but just be really careful what you're putting on there. You are, especially if you are stating that you're a speech and language therapist, either in your handle or your bio, just remember that you're representing the profession, and you just be careful what you're talking about. I've definitely been complaining about brands and stuff on there, and I just think you've got to be really careful how you're presenting yourself as a professional, but also especially when you're looking for jobs, because they will check that, or they might check that, but I think they always will. Especially if you're quite passionate about it. So just make sure that you're representing yourself how you want to represent yourself in an interview.
And just to be aware that we are regulated through the HCPC, and they do have quite strict rules around use of social media. And we are very aware that people have been referred to the HCPC about use of social media in a way that is, because you can bring the profession into disrepute, then that can be a trigger. So just to alert you, and I can't stop those referrals, so I try to intervene if somebody escalates something to me and says, I'm concerned, can you alert this person? And I've tried, but then if they've carried on, then I can't stop that referral happening to the regulator. It's not in our hands. So just to be very aware of that. I think, James, that's really sensible. Yeah. So what was something that you think is okay, somebody else might think is not appropriate. But, when you're out there working as a professional, then you just need to be aware of what you're saying. Okay, so somebody's asked about, could you clarify the position of an NQP being offered research immediately following graduation? What happens with completing competencies? I don't know if anyone has an answer to that particular question.
It would be unusual, wouldn't it, to, I mean, unless it was a post that was advertised with that component as an expressed part of it. I think that, but they're not, it's not commonplace, is it, in our experience, that it would be a, and I guess it would be, if there was to be a research component, it would be alongside developing your clinical practice and your competency skills. That's how I would design it. So the competency development would still be an integral part, perhaps with some research responsibilities. I don't know about other people, but perhaps.
Yeah, I agree, Jenna. I think it would be unusual to immediately pick up research alongside a clinical post. I think I would advise bedding down your clinical skills and getting that experience in place before taking on research. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a few minutes left. I'm just looking at another question is, what kind of questions would you expect at the application stage? So I think we've covered that though, have we, in terms of if you phone up and ask some questions before you actually apply. Is there anything else anyone wants to around that?
It's contained, isn't it, within the job description and the person specification, the recruitment documents that you receive and that are part of the advert, etc. Those documents they'll detail the questions that you're being asked at application stage that you need to evidence at application stage. So I think it's usually fairly clear and straightforward, that part of it.
Okay. And someone's asked, when writing a CV, would you distinguish voluntary from compulsory placements? Is that things that people have done on a volunteer basis, and how you distinguish that? That's something you'd...
I think it's good to mention, just because it shows that you're taking that extra step to try and get as much experience as you can. Like when I was applying for my current job, I said that I'd also volunteered with the Stroke Association. So that's something that I'd independently done apart from university. So it just shows like you're trying to get as much experience as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can see there's a comment in the chat around there are some students who can't afford to volunteer, and that's just not something they've got capacity to do. I think that's fine. You have to work within your own means and you have to get through your degree and qualify. In that scenario, I might do some research into local charities and local opportunities. So even if you haven't had that opportunity to volunteer, you can talk about what you're aware is available in the community.
Thank you, Sarah. I was just writing something in chat, but I'll also add to that. So Mutta, that is a fair point. And what I should have probably clarified is that it doesn't have to be somewhere that you go to volunteer, and so you're having to take that time out. It could be that you've drawn some experiences from personal experiences that you can add to the CV or to the interview. It could be that, for example, you come from a multilingual home, and so you're able to add an understanding around diversity and languages. So it doesn't have to be something separate that means you have to go off somewhere and do, conduct a volunteering action. It could be an experience that you've managed to share or undergo just, sort of as part of your life.
Thank you. We're getting towards the end. Are there any questions that the panelists have picked up that they really want to answer? So, or final comments? So Emily or James or Megan or Zainab, to start with, any of you, are there any final comments you wanted to make?
I think when you're applying and when you are in an interview, I know something I did in my interview for my current job is I identified things that I didn't know. And I think that's okay when you are applying for a job. It's okay to know what you don't know, because you've identified that, and either with your supervisor or by yourself, you can action plan for that. And that is just part of clinical development. So it's okay to say, I don't know everything.
Thank you. Mary, sorry, anyone else from the NQP panel? Sorry.
I was just going to add, just similarly to what Emily was saying, we also, if you've got an interest, a specific interest, kind of the area that you'd like to possibly pursue, maybe ask questions just to find out, is there potential to develop in this area? because then you're going to probably stick at that role for quite some time, because you're going to have that developmental opportunity. So do ask those questions.
Thank you.
I think I'd just
Zainab?
add to that, generally, I wouldn't feel too, I wouldn't be shy about asking for things. And I didn't really talk about like NQB competencies or independent study time, but I think in the interview, but also when you become an NQP, ask for what you need, because especially, I mean, I don't know other settings, but I know in mine, if you don't ask for that time, you will not get it, and it goes very, very quickly. So make sure you're clear about what you need, because you will hopefully get that support. You should get that support, but being clear, nice and early is really important.
I think a point that I would probably want to add is that when you're thinking of accepting a job, to make sure that it's a job that you really, really will enjoy, and it's a job that you really want. Because then if it's not, I think I've heard other people feel the effects of it. And at university, one of our lecturers said that sometimes people leave the profession because they think it's not the job for them, but it's not necessarily that they want to leave speech therapy. It might just be that they've not got the right job, or they're working in the right post right now. So I think it's good, like James and everyone else has said, to ask the right questions at the interview process so you know what you're going into.
Absolutely. No, very important not to give up, and it might be a number of reasons. So yeah, really important. Thank you for that. So to the manager panel, are there any final reflections from any of you? So shall I go around the virtual table? So I'll start with Mary. Do you want to start first? Is she there? No. Janet, are you still there?
I suppose, yeah, a reflection would be that having joined in today, it's incredibly exciting to think of all of you coming into the profession, because the level of skill and expertise and enthusiasm is just remarkable, and always makes me proud to be a speech and language therapist. So be confident. As I said earlier, we need you to come and do the things that we've been describing this morning, and we can't wait to welcome you into the profession.
Brilliant. Thank you, Janet. That's so kind and absolutely right. So, and Sarah, and then Shermeena.
Yeah, I agree with Janet. I think it's tremendously exciting to meet you all today. And something we talked about in our group was that employers recognise that it's been an incredibly challenging year for students. And if they don't recognise that, then they're probably not a good fit for you. But don't worry, we know that you are approaching graduation in a slightly different position than other cohorts. And we really do want to work with you to make that first year really successful, because your first year in working is your foundation for the rest of your career. So employers generally really do want to work with you to create that success.
Yeah.
Shermeena?
I wanted to say that the expert in anything was once a beginner, and that applies to all of us. Like Sarah and Janet have echoed, it has been a very difficult year for you and for us. And so I think just being honest and transparent and just taking things slowly. There's no rush here. When you need to talk, when you need a break, when you need to stop, I think just having that conversation, keep the conversation going, keep talking, and just be honest about how you're feeling, both clinically and up here.
Thank you. And certainly, my career journey is nothing that I had ever imagined when I qualified. No one knows where they're going to actually end up, but do follow your passion. That's what keeps me here. I care passionately about people with communication and swallowing needs, and we will always come across challenges. That's just life, I think. So that's the other thing I want to reflect on. There will never be a smooth year. That isn't reality. I think when we were talking to small groups, people were talking about the complexities of communication between MDTs and breakdown of communication. But see every point as a learning opportunity. And when I had a newly qualified who was in tears because she had a real problem with the teaching staff that she was working with, I sat with her and we reflected on what had happened and what had occurred, but also think about the learning and how she might go back into that situation in a positive way. So, it's not, real life is such that you will always learn, and all of us continue to. So we're very privileged that we have an amazing profession. We've grown so much. We now have 35 clinical areas in which we work, and a whole range of settings, from the youth justice sector and prisons, which was fairly new still and growing, mental health, as well as schools, early years, hospitals, community settings, care homes, all of, there's so much growth that's happened, and talking to many members who've become real experts. What I love about the profession is the diversity of creativity and of expertise that, and who knows where you're going to end up. So don't think too far ahead as well, just make sure that you enjoy and learn, and find places that you can go to get the support if you're really struggling. I know my first year was probably one of the most difficult I had when I qualified, and in a way I actually nearly gave up. So, and here I am, I clearly didn't, and I absolutely have enjoyed what I've done in my career. So do think positively and look for support. As I said, if you're feeling particularly low and you need somebody to talk to, reach out, and you can always reach out to us, the RCSLT. We have an inquiries line. We've got a lot of networks for the profession. We've got clinical excellence networks if you want to develop your skills and know more about a clinical area. And we're going to be supporting our clinical excellence networks or SENS to do more online, so that more people can access some of that learning. So we hope you join those. And also we've got our professional networks, part of the website that we're beginning to develop. And we do have hubs which are part of our sort of regional network, so that people, whatever role they have within the profession, can network and meet each other. And there is an opportunity to create some of those communities of practice that you might not have within your own area locally. So there's lots of opportunities. We've heard using social media and other mechanisms too. So this is the start of your journey with us. And it is, RCSLT is the profession. So just to say, if you wonder who the RCSLT, it's you, it's us. We work together. We have, I mentioned, over 18,000 members and 50 staff. So, we're not we're a small organisation as a staff team, but a significant professional body of knowledge, and the body of knowledge is within all of you. And I would encourage you to get involved. You're not, I'm quite interested in the confidence. I think you just feel confident and get involved. We're not scary. I hope now you've virtually met me, you see that I'm very, hopefully you can see we're accessible and we're easy to talk to. Because we're all very keen to support you as you go through your journey. So I want to finish by saying a really big thank you to the NQP panel again, and to the manager panel for their presentations. So just want to really thanks to all of you for joining in today. We're very aware that some of you do need to move on to other things, but for those of you who would like to stay and to network it with each other, please do. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you all at some point in your journey through the career. Take care and stay safe, and very good luck, and welcome to the profession. Thank you.